Hi, this is Brett Premack. I want to welcome you to a special edition of The Hang. Today we're going to be celebrating Dwayne Burno, Philadelphia-born bassist who passed last week at the age of 43.
When referring to Dwayne Burno, I think they're talking about his dedication to learning music, his dedication to being on time, his dedication, and Jeremy could definitely speak to that. He had him in the band for years. His dedication to just the overall supporting the band, and that was why he was one of my first calls. That's how I can answer. I don't know why other people would say it, but for me, it was his dedication to making everybody sound good on the bandstand, and contributing so much without being overbearing.
Well, Dwayne was someone, as Orrin mentioned, and as everybody that really knew him, had the same thing to say. I remember hearing about this as I was doing engagement just recently over at Smoke with Eric Alexander and a few other people. And Eric said something that was poignant, and I feel like we all know that it's truth. He said he had a tremendous commitment to music, and that is something that I've certainly found in the 6 years that he was in my group, is that out of everybody, and everybody had a very good commitment to the group, to music and to the group. But I mean, he was very loyal to the music, and just very diligent about learning every facet of it. I mean, he was like an encyclopedia of knowledge of not only my songs, his songs, other people's songs. I mean, he would just know them. He was a sponge like that, and I think that really contributed to his overall, mastery of his craft. Was just being. You didn't have to tell him to go ahead and why don't you, learn this. He just automatically did it.
As I hear a lot of people say, Dwayne was so warm and supportive and open, and not to mention the fact that I felt completely inspired by the way that he played and the way that he instigated within the rhythm section and the way he was always listening to you. And I left thinking that I had met a real special person and somebody that I wanted to be friends with.
Well, I think Jeremy hit it on a nail when he talked about his dedication and his study. Dwayne was such a diligent student of music period, and because he had so much knowledge and command of his instrument, you could go anywhere you wanted to go musically, whether it was an original or it was something that was considered a standard. I have a short story that I like to share. We were roommates in New York for a couple years, myself and Greg Hutchison, and I was downstairs from Dwayne. And I would be downstairs practicing. He would be up in his room, and it was a song that I was trying to learn. And I said, well, maybe Dwayne might have that in his CD collection. So I walk upstairs and knock on the door. And I said, Dwayne, do you know this song? And he was in bed, asleep. He opened his eyes, and he had like maybe 12. He had like 12 rolls of CDs.
I know what you mean.
And I said, Dwayne, do you know this song? And I swear to you, he said, third row, 8 CDs down, track number 4. and I said, this is no way in the world this is possible. And sure enough, there it was, and the fact that he could do that, it just totally amazed me. And he amazed me like that my whole life, ever since I've known him. He's just a brilliant person. I said that, if he didn't play bass, he would have been brilliant doing whatever he was doing. He just chose to play bass.
He was in the New Jazz Composers Octet, which is a band we kind of put together ourselves, me and Dwayne and Xavier Davis and Myron Walden and Greg Tardy.
Well, what was it about his bass playing that you felt worked in a composer's workshop kind of setting?
Well, it's a multitude of things. I mean, first off, he learns music incredibly fast. We actually just did another record a couple of weeks ago, and I had made some changes on a chart. We rehearsed it, we played it a couple of times. I went home and made a couple of changes in the chords, but he had already memorized the music, so he didn't even notice I made the changes. I had to actually point it out. He learns everything incredibly quick. He knows how to be supportive, and he knows how to challenge you at all times. And he also knows how to bring out. He understands the music you're writing pretty quickly, and he figures out ways to frankly, make it better most of the time. Dwayne is one of the most creative open bass players we have. I mean, I know the music I write, he's going to make something of it.
He taught me so much just about being a professional and being a no-nonsense player. And he knew, not only did he know, a lot of the, modern music, so to speak, but he knew every standard. I mean, he knew all the arrangements. So it was a training lesson, man. He was just teaching us every gig, and it was just a blessing that he was there. I'm frustrated now because I think in a lot of groups, a lot of horn players particularly don't really listen to the bass. What they want in a bass player is they want some guy with a big thump and a strong groove, and that's pretty much it. Because they're not really listening to the bass notes anyway. They're just playing what they're playing, and maybe they might be listening to the piano player a little bit. But I've never been that kind of player, and all the bands that I've been in and that I've heard and loved the most are filled with players that are not like that. They're filled with players that listen to the bass notes. And Dwayne was great because he had a sound that you could actually hear the specific notes that he was playing. It wasn't just about a thick, thump and a groove. You could hear the notes he was playing, and he was actually contributing a large amount to the harmonic situation going on in the music. And if you allowed yourself to actually really listen to it, it changed what you were doing, and it elevated the whole situation.
That's also for like 2 days what frustrated me as I looked at all the posts on Facebook with everybody like, oh, he had such a sense of rhythm. And I'm like, nah, okay, he did. But I also sat at the bar and heard you say, I heard certain people say, yeah, I can't call Burno because I only need one drummer. It was their inability to be able to play with somebody who had that wide of a scope of rhythm and playing the bass. So now he's playing the bass, he's playing with the drummer, he's playing with the piano player. I've heard several piano players like, oh man, that same thing that I've seen people write. Dwayne would drop a major seventh right on a minor chord, and we love it now. It's like, y'all didn't love it then. you didn't love it then. And you didn't love it based on your insecurities and your inability to play with Dwayne. So, and I can say that because I know it was me. That was me. I mean, when I first met Dwayne, 88 at Ortlieb Jazz House, and I heard him playing, I had no idea it was Autumn Leaves. I had no idea because his harmonic scope was so. And I say, man, I remember I did a record with Antonio was actually on it with Dwayne Eubanks, and we did this. This is '97 or something. We did the record and we kept listening back to this track, and we're listening and we're listening. I'm like, man, and I'm like, is that me? And I'm like, man, that chord is an E flat, Dwayne. And he was like, yeah. And I played a such and such. And I was like, okay. And I had to figure out, like, oh, shoot, what is he playing? And he could explain it. He could break it down. Like, this is why I'm playing A on the bottom of a B-flat major. Isn't it the B-flat? That's the major seventh, and you had to deal with it.
That was funny, Orrin, you said that because that reminds me of a story James Moody told me. He said when he was playing with Dizzy wrote a chord, and it had a raised 11 on it. And he was like, Dizzy, I think that note is wrong. And Dizzy Gillespie was like, Moody, don't worry about that. He said, but every time you play that chord, Dizzy, I think that note is wrong. And Dizzy said, Moody, why don't you just shut the hell up? And he realized that, just his harmonic knowledge was beyond where he was at the time. And I've run into situations with Dwayne that in the same situation where I wrote compositions and his note choices weren't necessarily what I was hearing at the time. But then when I heard it back, I was like, wow. I wouldn't have thought of that, and everything was right. He was just, Dwayne was just ahead of the curve.
What frustrates me is that, these days, if you're not wearing, a suit with some high-top sneakers and some dreads, people don't really pay attention to you.
I knew, like I said, I knew Dwayne when he first went to Berkeley. I was there when he attended, and he was, like I said, he was beyond all of us already when he arrived at Berkeley, and unfortunately, he couldn't afford to continue. And I went to the top of whoever I could talk to, and I said, you can't let this guy leave the school without a degree. I said, he's one of the most talented students you have here. You need to, help him out. But they didn't, and he ended up leaving the school, which probably wasn't a bad thing. But I got to know him again as my roommate, and then later on as adults when he used to live around the corner. And just personally, beyond the music thing, he was just, besides being a genius in my opinion, and I don't use that word lightly, he was definitely a genius if there was one. But he was a gentle spirit. He was a loving father. He was a good husband.